That is Michelle J. Raymond, my guest this week on Connect the Dots podcast. And she's also founder of Good Trading Company and the Global LinkedIn Company Page Expert, who shares a plethora of nuggets of information this week on episode 118. She not only talks about why it's important for everyone, whether a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, a small business owner, to have a company page, but then also share some really helpful tips for getting started or even creating your company page. There is a ton of information shared throughout the episode, so you won't want to miss a second of it. All of the links mentioned are in the show notes, which you can access at vickioneal.com/podcast. And this is episode 118. Let's go ahead and dive into that interview. Why don't you tell me about that? Like, what were you doing at the time that, or like looking at your history of sales
Yeah.
experience and just looking for that opportunity to go into this direction on LinkedIn? So why
Yeah.
don't you tell me about that path that kind of led up to that?
Well, it happened by accident. And when I say by accident, I guess there was a series of events that led up to it. So what happened was originally I got into LinkedIn around 8 or 9 years ago because I started a new sales job and I turn up and they give me a customer list, they give me a car, they give me a phone and they say, go and sell. And I go, okay, that's fine. I love selling. Off I go. And I said, but what do we sell? Where do I find that? Because it was a new industry for me. So I come from the beauty space selling ingredients like that you read on the back of labels and can't pronounce. And, I turn up and they say, I said, is it on the internet? And they said, no, we don't put it on there. I was like, okay. And then I said, so is there an old school catalog? I can deal with old school catalog if you just show me where it is. No, Michelle, we've got 10,000 ingredients. By the time we finish doing it, we would have to start again and there would be so much work involved. It's not worth it. It's your job. And I was like, how can I get around, Sydney's like, kind of like LA with all of its traffic and, geography, and it's just a pain to drive around. And I've got customers spread everywhere and I've got 10,000 ingredients. And you want me to just basically go and knock door to door and say, please buy this stuff. And I was just blown away by it. And so I just got the job using LinkedIn. And so I realized you could create content. So I decided that I would use it because it was free, because that was the number one proviso from my boss. He was like, Michelle, there is no marketing department. And we turned over $1 billion US. It wasn't a small company that I was working for with 1,200 employees, but yet the history of the industry meant the more that you kept close to your chest and didn't tell anyone, like your little black book of contacts, the more you grew. But the internet had come and they hadn't adapted. So I started posting content. And then I realized if you just post about the products that you sell all the time, it gets really boring really quickly. And so then I started to think about it. What would my customer want? And so I thought, okay, I come from the beauty industry, and specifically within that, they might want to know about trends or new products that are being launched around the world. So I started to get a bit more interesting with my content. And then from there, I went, if you don't have an audience, it doesn't matter how good your content is. So I better focus on that. So I built a really strong niche community. The reason I fell into company pages is I left that company and I'd built up such a reputation for them because they were the only ones doing social selling at that time in the industry. But I left and I got poached by a competitor. So all I did was take all of my followers, all of my conversations, and plonk them over for a new company. And then the same thing happened. Fast forward another couple of years, I got approached by one of my former customers, come and work for me and run my business. So I took all that with me again. So the companies got left with nothing. And so when I had to quit my job on the spot because I worked for someone that didn't share my business ethics. And I woke up the next day and I was like, what am I going to do? I fell into LinkedIn training because I realized I could show everybody what I'd learned over 8 years. And then I turn around and I do that. And then you start to actually, see for people that companies were missing out on the action. There were so many people talking on LinkedIn around profiles. Update your profile. Apparently, magic sales come. And I was like, no, it doesn't happen like that. There's a lot more to it. And so I reached out to do some training programs with former customers and said, look, I can help you take over the world just like I have. Like, it's amazing. You'll grow your sales. And they just looked at me with this desperate look. Oh my God, Michelle, how are we going to do one more thing? And that's when I went to the next customer, who was another small business owner, did the spiel for training. The look in their eyes was desperate. You know, they're wearing 50 hats. They're accountants, general managers, customer service, HR. They're doing the whole lot. And you want me to do this social selling thing. So my ideal client really starts with the line, I know I should, but, you know, and so that's where company pages came into it for me, because I could manage these pages as a third party. So it's within LinkedIn's guidelines. I felt uncomfortable doing it as a person, but selling on behalf of a company was completely natural. So that's a bit about the path, about how I ended up in company pages. And then obviously I've learned so much in the last, 12, 18 months about how they can really help businesses to grow. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, that's awesome. So there are several things along the path of what you were talking about. And I didn't want to interrupt you because the flow was so good and it's such a great story. Is that what led you starting your own business then? I think that was one of the last pieces that I heard.
Yeah. So as I said, I quit on the spot from someone that
Okay.
had just reneged on a $2 million deal that I'd done. It was the land of hand sanitizers and COVID. So, it was a bit of the Wild West at that time. And so I quit on the spot, and I woke up the next day and I was like, that's it. I'm not working for anyone else ever again. I worked too hard. I want to set up my own business. Now, I didn't have any ideas. I did not know what I wanted to do. And I got approached by lots of people and pulled in every direction. And then eventually I literally, I think I bounced off the bottom and had a bit of a meltdown and just went, everybody stop. Michelle, stop. Everybody leave me alone. I just need to think about this. And it was the fact that I reached out to someone in my former industry who'd been starting to use LinkedIn in the same way I had. And I reached out to her and I said, if you try this, this, and this, it will really help you go further with what you're trying to do. And she, thank God, made the comment, throwaway comment of, where did you learn all this stuff? I wish I could learn from you. And that is how Good Trading Co. was born, because the light bulb went off and I went, of course, I love training. I love helping. I love social selling. Of course I could help people. And, that's where it came from.
It's like everything that you liked doing and all of the things that you've done in the past and the people you were connected to, it's like it all came together at just the right time, even with LinkedIn and company pages and the need for all of us to understand it better. It's like it was just perfect timing for you.
Yeah, and COVID influenced that. The world changed during, that year, particularly for companies. So we saw, face-to-face visits we're in lockdown for the best part of that year here in Australia. So the traditional selling methods, which I'd used throughout my career, which were going to trade shows, going on customer visits, bringing out important visitors from overseas to parade them around at each of my customers and, peddle our wares. All of that went out the window overnight. And no one had built up a strategy for what do we do if that happens, because it had never happened before. What do you mean we're going to be in lockdown for 6 months straight and we can't go out of the house, except for, grocery shopping or things like that. And so, it changed the world. And so companies then went, what do we do? And, LinkedIn was an obvious answer, being the trusted platform, the number one B2B platform. There is nothing else like it. And so, the floodgates opened and in came everyone. And it's just been, such a ride for the last 18 months. The platform's changed because of it. And the way people use it has changed as well.
Yeah, I think with the change of COVID, well, the flow of COVID and how it's changed all of us just in how we operate, communicating with people and doing business. To your point of when you were face to face with people, or having to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, can we schedule a meeting or schedule a coffee or whatever that situation was, all of that came to a screeching halt. And at the same time, as a business owner, it's like, okay, so is my business now going to come to a screeching halt? And we all very quickly figured out how to pivot and do things online in order to continue making business happen. And LinkedIn has been a very strategic point in that process for most of the businesses, especially those that may have been struggling, not sure how to make it work. And then now they're on LinkedIn. And I'm assuming that people that you're connected to, I shouldn't assume, I hate that word. As soon as
It's
I say
easy
it,
to
I'm like,
do. It's
no,
easy
just
to do.
ask questions, just ask the questions.
I
One
hear
of the
you.
things, one of the things that you had said when you were talking about the path that led up to where you are today with LinkedIn, you'd made a comment about how you essentially had stepped into your customer's shoes and said,
Mm.
what is it that they're looking for? What is it that they need and how can I serve them? Those are not the exact words. In case somebody's
They
going
are
back and
very
saying,
good.
is that really what she said?
I hope I
um,
said it that well.
yeah. I was so impressed and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like, she's putting herself in her customer's shoes. And that's something I talk about all the time, because in order to understand how you can best serve them and connect with them and help them and, gradually have them buy from you and be a customer, you need to understand what makes them tick, right? So to hear you say that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's
You will
so awesome.
normally hear me say, it's not about you. Like that is my golden rule of LinkedIn, social media in general. If you're doing any form of social selling, get over yourself. It's not about you. And the sooner that you learn that, and that's been the problem with company pages, historically, is that they were just broadcasting, it's all about the company. It's all about us, us, us. And who cares? It's a snooze fest. People aren't interested in how great your company is. All they want to know is, how do you transform my problem that I'm having and how do you solve it? And when you talk to that pain point, that's where the sales come from. They don't come from, we've just had the best year ever. This is our new starter and it's all, new humanness. It's not nice. No one wants to read it and they didn't work. And then people say company pages are rubbish. It's like, well, no, the content's rubbish. Rubbish content is rubbish content. It doesn't matter if it's on your personal page and it doesn't matter if it's on a company page. If
Yeah.
it's not about how you help others, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, great point. It's like trash in, trash out, same thing with what you put on your company page or your personal page. So I would love to use this as like a mini training session for people who are listening or watching. So knowing that company pages are something that a lot of people struggle with, including myself, where how I fit this into the time I'm investing on LinkedIn. What would be 2 to 3 things that you could share with us that would help us better understand how we can use our LinkedIn company pages?
For sure. And before I go into the how, I'm going to tell you why you want to do it. Because if you don't understand the why, the how you're just going to skip over. You're just going to go, it's another thing and I can't be bothered. I get it. I totally get it. So if you understand the why, then the how becomes easier. So the why is a couple of things. If you have a company page, what happens is if someone happens to Google or search for your business name off the platform, so on a Google search engine, LinkedIn results come up in the first couple of positions. Okay, so if they accidentally stumble across your page, you want to make sure that there's something there when people arrive. There's also when, we don't buy anything anymore in this lifetime without doing reviews and seeing what other people say, and getting a feel for, businesses and what they stand for and what they're like and their knowledge, that whole know, like, and trust. It works for companies just as much as it works for individuals. So if you get that you're creating a destination, so I'm just going to put it out there before I go into the hows, I'm just going to put it out there, you won't get as much reach and it will take you probably 6 to 12 months to build something that you'll see a return. So now that we've got those things out of the way, the how can a small business owner do it when they're juggling time commitments and all kinds of pressures that come in from all sides? The easiest way that you can do this is, number one, look at the frequency. You don't need to be posting every day on a company page. You just need to do something consistently. So if that consistent is once a week, that's awesome. If that consistent is once every 2 weeks or once a month, that's perfectly okay as well. Just try and keep something that's consistent. if you think you don't have any content to post, I'm going to challenge you, because there's lots of easy ways to make content, because most people are doing it already over on their personal page, and they are creating content, or they have a website that's full of blogs and information that someone set up. So repurposing some of what you've created over there, it's okay to bring it across to your company page. So you don't need to create everything from scratch, which is, a way to save a lot of time. Also, if you're flicking through on your phone like we all do day in, day out, and you find an article that you think would be of interest to potential customers of your business, then share that and just add on a few thoughts at the beginning. Now, there will be people, LinkedIn experts, that will tell you sharing external links won't get you as much reach and all of these kind of things. Throw it out the window. Don't worry about that. Just have something there that people can come and see. So the easiest way you can think about a company page is it's a destination. So it's not something that shows up in the feed very often. We know that it's, once every now and then that company page posts show there. But when someone's doing their research, so they come and they go, I really love Vicki. I've really been enjoying her content. I like what she stands for. I'm really thinking about buying from her, but I just want to check out what's her company like, and even if you're a solopreneur, right, the same thing still applies, because when we want to actually not just go from being entertained or educated, we want to hand over our money, then we just want to check, especially if it's an overseas, vendor of some description, it becomes even more you need to trust them. And so if I go and have a look at the destination of your company page, I get a feel for what you like, and I feel more comfortable that it's okay for me to hand over money. And so you are different to your company, even if you're a solopreneur. Like I basically run my business, Good Trading Co., as a solopreneur, but I have a very different personality and branding on my company page. And I talk all about how to get the most out of company pages. But if you come across to Michelle J. Raymond as my personal profile, you'll see I kind of go off on a tangent here there, because my audience is so different. Like I've collected people over the last 10 years in the beauty industry, in former jobs, people I went to school with, but my company page is all about company pages, ironically. And so for me, it's just remember, repurpose, do what you can do consistently, and just remember that it's not going to get likes and comments like you do over on your profile. But if someone was to come and do their research, just like we do when we book a restaurant, what would they find out if they came over? So there's some of the tips that I would give people.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are great tips. I was like taking mental notes and actually took one note in particular. I'm like, I need to remember to be consistent, because I have a consistency on my podcast, my video, my blog. Now I need to add LinkedIn company page to that.
Well, the good news for you is you have so much content that you don't need to go and redo any new content. You could re-promote the podcast. You could re-promote the YouTube channels. And so you can reuse lots of what you've already got. They're great ways, you've already got content coming out of everywhere. It's just a matter of, a new audience that's completely niche around your topic. And so anyone that follows the company page, you don't do them for fun. You do them because they're of interest, or you think that there's a benefit for you. So if you just keep that in mind, repurposing is such a strong way for small business owners to make the most out of their company page.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of repurposing content. It's something I talk about a lot. And actually, my video this week and my podcast episode were about that. It's about content strategy and incorporating, longer form content like this that we can then repurpose in other ways, including clips and images and stats and all that stuff. So that would be really good information to use on a company page. No sense in creating something new, just repost or repurpose it and put it on there as original content. So that brings me to two questions. You had mentioned your LinkedIn company page should be a destination. So the first thing that came to mind, and you probably get this question from other people as well, is why should I drive traffic to my LinkedIn company page if I have a website? So talk to me a little bit about that.
For sure. So a company page should actually help you drive traffic to the website as well. So it acts like, I often talk about it like a mini website is your company page. So especially for small business owners or people who have a side hustle where you don't want to go and spend $3,000, $5,000 getting a website created, The company page actually can almost act like your own mini website. So it's got a tab for events, it's got a tab for videos, you've got your posts, including articles, so you can go long form blogs. So you can do everything almost that you do on a website on your company page. And there's a button where you can select to drive people back to any kind of link. So if you want to drive the traffic, if someone sees what's going on and they want to know more, you can send them to your website, which might be, a bit more complicated with some of the things that you've got going on there. But for a lot of small business owners, I think you can get away with a company page for quite a while when you're starting out, and especially when cash flow is tight. So they're very, very similar. The main difference, one is static. So you kind of set up a website and then set and forget for most business owners. They just invest a lot of time and energy up front. And then 3 years later, they come back and go, we better do a refresh. And then whereas company pages, it's what's going on today, what's going on this week. And so it's always dynamic. It always reflects what's going on. And that for me gives people a better understanding, and you can show the human side of your business a bit more. So that for me is why I would have both. If you're starting out, I would say start with the company page and work your way up to a website.
Okay, yeah, that's a great answer. And you'd mentioned earlier too that your company page actually goes into search results, right? If somebody's searching for that, it'll be in one of the top, probably at least the first page, maybe above the fold search results too, where your website might be competing against other websites or components. And if you're not keeping it updated, then it's probably going to get pushed down lower in the search results.
Yeah. And I mean, SEO is expensive. If you don't have a few $1,000s a month to put into it, it may be cheaper options in the States, but, here it's probably 2,500 Australian dollars a month to get any kind of return on SEO. Whereas you can be on first page, first few results, for free. Company pages are free. This is the amazing part from LinkedIn. And they're just getting more and more features that we're seeing roll out that make them more user friendly, which they weren't probably 18 months ago. But why are they? We talked about it earlier. COVID came, businesses changed where they spent their advertising money. You need a company page to run advertising. And so everyone brought their advertising dollars across onto the platform, and LinkedIn had record breaking quarters every quarter last year, and they keep doing so for the marketing spend. So what happens is all that money that's being made from ads, which I don't do ads myself, but all that money is getting put back into features to make more company pages more attractive, which means more people might spend money on advertising. So we're just seeing features come through thick and fast at the moment, which is super exciting.
Yeah, that's very exciting. It's good to see that LinkedIn's investing some money and resources into, excuse me, COVID. No, I'm kidding. That was a while ago. Oh my gosh. So they're investing like money and resources into improving company pages so that people will start using them more, because there has to be a why in it for us as individuals or employees if you're running a bigger company page, to actually invest time and money into actually using it, posting content, whether it's new content or repurposed content. The question I have, and you may not have heard me ever say this before, but I've said it before in DMs, I've said it in posts, I've told people in person. It's just something that irritates me. And I'm curious on how we can overcome this for anybody who's, listening to this or watching this. People who share a company post. I can't, if there's one thing besides DMs from people that I don't know, as soon as I connect with them, trying to sell me something, that's probably my number one irritation about LinkedIn. The second thing is probably seeing people who share a company page post. Talk to us about that. What's a better solution, or tell me why why I shouldn't be irritated by that.
Look, I think you're irritated because the quality of the content that you're getting is the problem. So it's not necessarily the share. It's, as I said before, it's not that it comes from a company. It's because it's just rubbish and it's of no help to anybody. So if someone shares something where it's the top 10 ways that you can save time or save money, or, solves a problem that you're having in your business, you don't care where it comes from. You just go, oh my God, that's amazing. Like I'm going to take that and I'm going to run. So sharing doesn't go very far, as we know, on LinkedIn in general, but I think it just comes back to that point. It's not about you. It has to be about who you're putting it out out there. Now, I think that the person doing the sharing has got the right intent and that they are trying to help. And I would encourage that person. And I think most companies don't invest enough in training of employees, set them up for success. It's all well and good to say, oh, yes, you work for a company, therefore you should post everything on LinkedIn. You should share all of our stuff. You should do this. But they don't train anybody. They don't invest in them to know what's best practice. One of the cool things that you can actually do on a company page, if you have more than 10 employees, so it's not for smaller businesses than that, is that you can actually go onto the My Company tab. So if you're a company that has, say, a marketing team that wants to control what goes out there, for branding or whatever other purposes, which I'm not a fan of. But if that's the case, we work with what we've got. They can write posts in a My Company tab, and employees can go in and press a button and share it on their personal profiles. Now, the difference with this through a My Company tab is you don't know it's a share. So it just works like an organic post, but someone else has written it for them. And so this is a really cool way for companies to get people started and confident posting on LinkedIn. We all kind of assume that everybody wants to be front and center, but as you know, the stats are probably around 95 to 99% of people don't want to be the person that creates content. So if you can create it in the My Company tab, again, need more than 10 employees, it posts just like an organic post. So you get the best of both worlds.
That is very interesting. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, there's lots of cool features that are happening. Again, like I said, it only happens if you've got 10 employees or more. It's called the My Company tab, and it works like a mini intranet is the easiest way. So only employees can see. It's an easy way for you to find out what your colleagues are up to. So work anniversaries, if they've done a post, it's an easy way to jump in there and then support those posts. And so it filters out all of the noise that happens in the feed while you're trying to find out, hey, what did if you're on the West Coast, what did my East Coast colleague do? Maybe you're not online at that time. If you jump onto the My Company tab, it all posts in there. So it makes life easier to keep up and support colleagues, which I really love the idea. And so the more that becomes a relatively new feature, but the more that rolls out, I think that will become a bigger part of company pages.
Okay, yeah, that's a great thought, and it's good to know, especially for people who do have companies that have more than 10 employees, to research that, or they can reach out to you to get training, right?
Absolutely. Always happy to, or buy my book, Business Gold. We wrote a book on company pages. So Lynette Johnston's my co-author, and we got together to write this book on company pages because there wasn't a resource for people. And so it's the world first book on a topic that no one really wanted to talk about. But at the same time, it's been hugely successful because there are so many business owners that are going, yeah, it's all well and good to talk about personal brands, but what about my company? So I'm not a anti-personal brands, just so before anyone jumps up and down and says, Michelle, people want to deal with people and all the other things that follow that. I am like, why not have both? Use your company page to build up your employees' credibility and vice versa. And the synergy between the two, you can't compete, like if you only run personal brands. So, I talk about it from the perspective, I come from a sales background. It did not matter how amazing I was if the company I worked for orders fell over in the background, if customer service fell over, if deliveries fell over. To ignore your company brand is just do it at your peril, is what I say. Have both, have your cake and eat it, and get the best out of both. And there's only upside for that.
Yeah, exactly. So what brought the two of you together to want to co-author this book? Was there something that happened, or you just saw that there was this opportunity, a gap in the bookshelves of people, and everybody was talking about, here's what you do from a personal standpoint on LinkedIn. You're like, hey, we're going to swoop in and we're going to show you what you can do with the business LinkedIn pages.
Well, this is a really cool story about the power of LinkedIn. So it's a bit of a journey. So it starts with, I write a comment about company pages on a post that was done by a friend of mine in Europe. And so he was anti-company pages. And I wrote a comment that said, hey, have you thought about this, this, and this? That was picked up by someone that has a podcast in Dubai at the time, LinkedIn Smart. And it was noticed, and he said, hey, Michelle, I've never seen anyone talk about company pages. Do you want to come on my podcast and talk about it? So I jump on a podcast that's in Dubai. One of the listeners was Lynette Johnston, who was sitting in New Zealand. So we've jumped another country. She's sitting in New Zealand, listens in and goes, this person's talking about company pages. And she reached out to me. She's another LinkedIn trainer based here in New Zealand. And so she reached out. She'd already written one book on, profiles and that side of LinkedIn. And she'd been thinking about writing a book on company pages, but didn't have the full technical knowledge. And so we reached out and connected within 15 minutes of a Zoom call. She said, I've got something strange I want to ask you. And I said, oh, okay. Not wondering what it was, being on my best behavior, not trying to offend another LinkedIn trainer, like what's going on? And she said, do you want to write a book on company pages? And I was like, yes, squeaky voice, because I was like, I've never written a book before. And so that's, the power of things. There's a couple, power of comments, the power of being strong in a niche and not being general, and the power of connections around the world. And so we wrote the book, and as it turns out, our skills were absolutely complementary. So the power of collaboration kicked in. What she was good at, I wasn't. What I knew, she didn't. And so we were able to produce something better than what each of us individually could have done. So really proud of it. It's, performed really well, but mostly it's helped people navigate company pages so that they can get results for their business. Because ultimately, I don't want people to be busy just for the sake of being busy. Like, I want results, that inner salesperson in me, at the end of the day, I want to see numbers tick over. Otherwise, what's the point? We've got better things and more fun things we can do, right?
Yeah, exactly. That is such a great story. I absolutely love that. And it shows the power of investing in yourself and investing in time and where you spend it. Because if you wouldn't have made that comment, that whole path, that whole domino effect never would have happened, and you wouldn't have written the book. I mean, that is so amazing and powerful at the same time. What a great story. I love that.
And I made a friend out of it. It went to that next level. So for me, it ticked so many boxes, and opened up conversations and connections with people that I didn't even know existed. The book's been sold in, say, Mexico or India or, all throughout Europe. And, that just, again, keeps blowing my mind away. People, reach out and they read the book. And I was like, wow, where did you come from? How did you? But that's the power of LinkedIn. The power of LinkedIn is not features and functions and algorithms and all that kind of stuff. It's connections and conversations. It really is that simple, but you have to take action to actually make them happen.
Yes, very true. And it sounds like between your strengths and opportunities that maybe you weren't as strong in, and then she had the opposite, the two of you guys together probably wrote a better book than what LinkedIn could, because you've got the user side that you've incorporated into it.
Yeah. And people said to us, we deliberately made it short. We deliberately left out all the fluff. It is a very practical how-to kind of book that business owners are thankful, because, let's be clear, company pages aren't really that exciting of a topic. I love getting the most out of them, but it's not something I talk about when I go and catch up with friends, and so, but we wanted to make sure that you knew how you could use them, and there's more to them than just saying, oh, I don't get reach. That's just such a narrow vision, of what's possible in a bigger scheme of things. For instance, LinkedIn, I'm part of the testing pilot group that's testing newsletters for company pages. So we'll see those rolled out, but you need 500 followers or more, so that, there's advantages to building a community on your company page. And there will be more that will come in the future, because, as I said, that's where LinkedIn's putting the money. And I'll give you a handy tip for anybody that's listening. If you want to know what they're focusing on, I've had conversations with the LinkedIn team as part of the Small Business Advisory Council, and what they're focusing on: long form articles and LinkedIn lives, right?
Oh,
So,
things I'm not
if you,
doing.
yeah. Exactly, right. So you could move this kind of conversation. So what I do is I have a LinkedIn live doing something similar to this, and I repurpose it into my podcast. But the advantage of doing it on my company page is, if you go and have a look at Good Trading Co and look on the video tab, all of my former lives are there, so I can go back and tag people and keep them there. And it's like a mini YouTube channel. So I love that. But why long form? In a world where everyone's in such a rush, why long form? Why would you want to do that as a company?
Yeah.
They did a huge report called the Edelman Report. LinkedIn co-sponsored it. And that report basically said that B2B buyers are out there doing their research online and basically sick to death of finding lack of quality articles and blog posts. So, the kind when you research a particular question on Google and you get 20 different versions that just look like somebody's copied the next website and the next website. They're done for SEO. They're not done for thought leadership. And B2B buyers are just like, okay, it's like a tick and flick, and it's not helpful and it's not thought leadership. So as a company, if you can write a long form blog article that's really valuable, it's going to help people, just like we keep, repeating throughout this conversation, then people will pay attention and read it and find it valuable, and you'll be seen as the go-to authority in your industry. And again, write the long form, chop it down into smaller pieces and turn it into multiple posts. So yeah, that's what they're doing. Live events, I think paid events will come later in the year, but they really want people to be live and doing things within the platform. And so there's ads that you can run for LinkedIn Lives, hence why LinkedIn want you to kind of do it. You don't need them, but for some businesses, much bigger businesses than mine, they like paid advertising strategies, and so that makes that available to them. So yeah, a couple of
So do
tips.
those two things on your company page, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, long form
Absolutely.
content or articles and LinkedIn Lives. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
have to start doing that.
here's how you work around. I've got more followers on my personal profile than what I do on my company page. So this is a secret that I don't tell very many people. So it's just for you and your listeners.
Should I
I
bleep
do
this
it.
part out as we're doing it? So they have
Yeah.
to see it?
So there's something you've got to keep in mind. So when you do it on your personal profile, yes, you have more connections, right? And so it will help you get your message to a portion of those. And so that's great. But after it's done, it drops down the feed, disappears forever unless you make it a featured post. Okay. So otherwise it disappears. On your company page, if you create it, it will sit on the events tab forever. It sits there as a future event and then moves into past events. It also then goes on to the video tab. So your live stays there forever. So if people are looking around, and you can redirect them. Now, here's how you get around. Okay, Michelle, I don't have as many followers on my company page. Why would I bother? Easy. You get 1,000 invite credits per person per week. So if you plan your events, you can use your personal network to bring people over. And so that's why I have such a strong strategy around lives, is because I invite people every week. They come and they see, and if they then want to see more, they can have a look around the Good Trading Co page and learn who Good Trading Co is without me having to reach out and say, by the way, I'm Michelle, and
Yeah.
I do company page stuff and I can help you, which is part of what I do, but I don't want to do it on that kind of scale. But I do want people to remember me. Another advantage sits on personal profiles to say you're going to that event if you're an attendee. So I then say, if I have 200 registered attendees, it sits on all of their profiles. So if someone happens to look at their profile, they see my branding. So shh, don't tell
No one knows. Shh.
anyone. Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm gonna have to get some time. Well, I won't be able to tomorrow. My day's completely full, but the next day I've got like a lot of time open, and I'm going to invest time on company pages to figure out what I can do to start taking action. What's the first thing that you would recommend? So I haven't visited my company page in forever. So what's the first thing I should do? Is it repurpose something that I already have created? Is it schedule a LinkedIn Live? Like what's the first thing I should do?
So the very first thing that I would do, especially most people, when you create your company page, I'm just creating it so I get a logo showing on my personal profile. Not really interested in doing anything with it, but I don't want the gray buildings on my profile, right? So that's why most people create it. When they do it in a rush, and they gloss over different bits and go, oh, it doesn't really matter. I'm never going to create content on it, so who cares? So I'm going to say to you, go back and just review the setup of the page. The reason that I do that is company pages that are 100% complete and set up get 30% more views as per LinkedIn. So when you create content, if you've done that work, then you can actually get the advantage from doing it. Now, often people change, it might be a change in a website domain, contact details might be different, there's staff changeovers. Go back and have a look at the about section. So if I come to your company page, does it really tell me what you do, how you do it, how you help me, that kind of stuff? Quite often, again, it's like a company website about bit, which is like blah, blah, blah. We started in 1992 and, we have 35 employees across 4 cities and, that kind of, no one cares.
Yeah, exactly.
No
How
one
can you help
cares.
me? Tell me that.
Exactly. But if you tell me the transformation that I'll get from my business by dealing with you and how you can help me and how I'll feel so amazing after it, then if someone comes and visits, then they're going to get the right impression. So my first advice is go over and just make sure it's set up properly. If you're happy with that, and even if you're not going to get to your company page anytime soon, do one post that says, hey, not normally here, but if you want to reach us, here's how you can find us. Please reach out to blah, blah, and leave a signpost so it's not a ghost town. Because if you leave it as a ghost town, we have the opposite effect where it looks like you're not a real business. So you've got to be careful. The absence of action creates a brand just as much as taking action does. And so this is why it's important. And again, doesn't need to take millions of hours. Even with the clients I work with, the maximum posts we do per week are 3, and that's a significant, kind of number. For others, it could be less than that. But yeah, signposts so they can find you.
Okay, great. That's what I'm going to do then.
So
Taking your advice, and that's what I'm going to do.
it's doing the basics consistently. You
Yeah.
don't have to make, I'm all about LinkedIn simplified. You don't have to make it complicated. It doesn't have to be that. You can do the basics, do them well, and do them consistently, and that's where you'll get results.
Awesome. Now, I know that we talked about this earlier in the conversation too. And with this podcast being called Connect the Dots, tell me, I think we can kind of glean from the entire conversation what you're doing from a marketing perspective to drive sales. But is there anything specific that you want to share that kind of helps other people understand how you're connecting the dots between the two, what you're doing with marketing to drive sales?
Yeah, for me, it's about being top of mind is probably my main strategy. So I don't get obsessed with numbers and analytics and what the best time of day is to post, although obviously I have, some pretty general rules around that. But for me, it's about I spend a lot of time making sure that I'm top of mind, and that can be spending time commenting on other people's posts. It doesn't have to be just my posts. So for me personally, the way I connect the dots between my company page and my personal profile is essentially quite a lot of times when I do a post on either, I'll ask on my personal post, hey, how about you come and follow at Good Trading Co. And I tag in my company page, and then I can go and like and comment on my personal profile. So if you're a small business owner and you want to look 10 times bigger instantly, one of the reasons I love company pages, it doesn't matter if you're Google, Microsoft, Netflix with 8 million followers. If you have one employee, you get the same amount of space on a company page for free. Same banner size, same logo size, same headline characters. Like you compete on an even playing field for free. And so for me, I then go across and on my company page content, I build up Michelle as an individual. I celebrate the successes. I show you behind the scenes. I make people understand that my business, is just as good as what my personal reputation is. And that means people can trust me, and trust me to do training with them or whatever the project is. But it's basically there is no gap. And so for me, the connecting the dots is use one to empower the other. And that's how I do it. So ultimately, my next step in my business, because, I've only had a business for about 18 months, properly for just over 12. My next step is the evolution of my website. So driving traffic and getting more complicated, but I'm not at that point right now. So I'm focusing on what I can get done, what I can manage, and being the best at it and finding the ways to do it fastest, most efficiently, and get the biggest return for the effort that I put in to create content. And, that's why repurposing longer form content is, so important to me for 2022.
Yeah, awesome. And you are always the name that I think of, and I have ever since somebody introduced me to you. And when it comes to LinkedIn company pages, you're the person I think of. So you've done a great
Thank
job of
you.
branding yourself.
Well, I was really lucky. So one of my first people I met around 12 months ago when I was setting up my business was, I don't know if you've come across her, Michelle Griffin, who's a personal branding strategist. And when I was doubting myself about going into niches, kind of April last year, she's like, no, Michelle, keep talking about company pages, keep talking about it. It's like, are you sure? I feel like I'm missing out on, making business. I can do profiles. I can do this. She goes, I know you can do everything. Doesn't mean you should. And so just keep going down this path. And so I'm so grateful to her. I always give her a shout out because it's just something that, as a small business owner, being a new business owner, it was just a lesson I had to learn. Just like everybody else, there's things that I'm good at, things I'm not so good at. And so finding your LinkedIn best friends that can, have strengths that complement you. Yeah, that for me was my biggest bonus of 2021, is just building an amazing community who I can reach out to and say, can you help me with this? And, it's vice versa. So
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you giving her a shout out too. It's always nice when we can like share in who we've connected with and kind of who's helped us get to where we are today. Just like you
yeah.
mentioned, Jillian, that's how you and I connected.
Look, Jillian is my easy peasy video coach. And I have done training with Jillian because she made such a difference to me, because I was struggling with how do you edit videos? And, and this is why I love LinkedIn. I was like, this, whole editing videos was driving me crazy, taking me hours. How do I turn that around? And
Live.
sometimes it's investing in coaches that have already done it all.
Yeah, exactly. I had asked her that too with my videos, and she's like, Vicki, you should just do LinkedIn Lives. And I'm like, I know there are a lot, you don't have to do any editing, right? It's just, it is what it is. And you publish it, and then people comment, and it's all good. So I'm like, I know. And now you've inspired me even more. So I think the direction is to go LinkedIn Live.
Yeah, LinkedIn Lives are a lot of fun. I love having that connection with the audience. And if you're a business owner, it's a great way to take it away from being a company just brand and, that whole bland kind of who cares into, hey, we're actually people. Like, this is my silly Aussie accent. This is,
Yeah.
how excited I get when I talk.
Yeah.
All those kind of things, you get to relate to people. And what I noticed is if you build it over time, that community that happens in the comments of people, they start helping each other. And that's my favorite part to watch.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And when you see that engagement happen, it's just like, yes, something is resonating with people and we're doing something that's helpful to everybody.
And it's instant feedback.
Yes.
People jump in the comments and ask more questions. And then you get to understand that's what's going on for people who are interested in this topic. Not what I think they want to hear, but what they're asking, what they don't know. Because quite often when you're a subject matter expert, like I talk about company pages, all day, every day, I
Mhm.
forget that people don't even know where to find how to create a company page on LinkedIn, or what. I had someone the other day didn't even know that a company page existed, and so, it's easy to, when you talk about it all day, to forget what it's like for people at the beginning of the journey. And so it's a really nice way to get that kind of feedback and keep you grounded in, it's not about sharing how much I know, it's about making sure that I'm answering questions that my community wants answered.
Yeah, I was doing lives on YouTube, but that's just not the best place to do them because it's not an active audience. It's people going out for the most part, just finding videos that they want to learn something from or engage with or
Mm.
laugh at or whatever. But it was, I
So
think that's why I struggled with that. I enjoyed it, but at the same time, it was tough to find people who were interested in being, on that schedule. So that kind of turned me away from it. And I'm just like, I'm going to wait on the lives for a while.
yeah. So here's what I do. I go live from my company page. at the same time, it goes live on YouTube and live on Twitter. So I go live in 3 places at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it's just, again, different ways I can show up. I don't have a huge following on either of those things. It's something that I'm growing, but again, it's repurposing. How do I get the same piece of content to go further? If you
Hmm.
stream live and you go to YouTube and Twitter at the same time, someone may pop in there, and it may be my ideal client that just spends more time on Twitter. I'm still trying to work that one out. So if anyone can help me with that one,
Yeah.
I'm not really into it, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to be friends with it. But
Yeah.
and
It's
that's a
tough.
thing. You've
Yeah.
just got to do what works for you. I think you've
Yeah. Yeah.
nailed
Twitter's
it.
a whole different animal. It really
It's a
is.
beast.
But it is. And I've been on there since I think I was on that first. Well, maybe LinkedIn was first. I'm not sure if it was LinkedIn or Twitter, but they were both the early on, applications, then Facebook, and it evolved from there. But Twitter used to be a really phenomenal place to be, and participate in the chats and, use the hashtags and follow, it was just like a great thing. But I invested a lot of time in it again last year, over the last 2 years. And I actually stopped about 6 months ago because I'm like, this is just exhausting. You
I
just kind of have to
I
figure
just
out what's working and what's not working, right? And that just was not working for me because it was just like people were still unfollowing me. And I'm like, I haven't changed my content. I'm not pitching constantly. I'm trying to be helpful, but I was just like, you know what? Never mind.
Yeah, look, and
Whatever
that's
here.
part of why I think, people need to look at strategies. What do you enjoy? And so for me, I spent a lot of time on Clubhouse last year, which was driving traffic across to Instagram or Twitter, which is the only reason that I kind of started focusing on those a little bit. They're more fun than
Yeah.
anything else. But then I realized I was spending more time checking notifications. I was spending more time going, oh, what should I post?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, what happened to my LinkedIn company page post or my personal post? Oh, that's right. I was over on Instagram where my audience isn't, so you got to stop and go, just because these tools are there. And this is what we'll see, I think, when social audio comes onto LinkedIn and gets rolled out further. It'll be like the gold rush. Everyone will jump onto this social audio and think audio rooms are amazing. And then all of a sudden you realize, man, where did those 8 hours go? I should have been doing this, that, or the other. And so
Mhm.
I think a few people will learn that lesson the hard way, but it's always important. Start with the strategy. Like,
Yeah.
where is your client? What kind of content do they want? And,
And
you
don't
know,
get sucked into the
and what do you
time.
enjoy?
Yeah. Yeah. Find the things that you enjoy and where your ideal customers are spending time. And that's like where you really should be investing all your time. Okay,
Couldn't have
one
said it
last
better.
question before we part ways, because I know I've kept you on here for a long time.
All good, all
Trying to
good.
be
I talk a lot.
respectful of your time.
I talk a lot. I should have put that up
I
front.
love it. This has been a great conversation. What's one thing that your ideal customers don't know about you, but you think they should?
They should know that I'm out to change the world. And what I mean by that is the reason that I talk about company pages and growing businesses is because basically my thoughts on this are the more businesses that grow, the more meaningful employment, the better communities we live in, and I get to live a better life. And I do that because I saw the implications of what happens in an event where I saw someone, pass away at a young age from a drink driver. And that changed me because I realized if you've got a weak link in your community, it doesn't matter how good my life is, that can be taken away in a second. So it's a good thing. Sorry to kind of end on a morbid note, but it's what inspires me to create businesses that really thrive so that we can really create jobs. If you've got a job, you've got meaning, you've got money, you've got choices, and you break that cycle of poverty, that's a better world. And that's the legacy I want to build. So yeah, that's probably what not a lot of people know because I've kept it to myself for a while, but I appreciate you asking me.
Oh,
But
no
yeah,
problem. Thank you
that's
for sharing that too. I really appreciate it. That was very insightful. I kind of like got emotional there for a second because it's like, I heard you say that with the drunk driver and I was like, oh my gosh. I don't know anyone personally, but it crushes my heart to hear that situations like that happen. So I'm
yeah,
putting
and it
myself
can
back in.
it can happen with anything. It can, like it's been a year and, it's not necessarily that I'm focused on that. It was just something that I realized that as a business owner, if I'm going to create, good trading codes about doing good business with good people, not having crappy bosses or dealing with people that renege on $1 million deals or don't hold their word, I get to choose what kind of business. And part of that is, yes, I want to make loads and loads of money so I can live a life that I love. And I also want to leave a legacy. And so, that's just as important to me. So, and I believe I can have both. And so I don't talk about it. And I think, if businesses shared that in their content as well, like why bother having your own business? Like, it's the hardest thing that I've ever done. And it challenges me in ways that I've never been challenged before. And not everyone would survive as a business owner, especially small business. Like, I learned how much I didn't know. And so if you're the kind of person that does it, why do you do it? Because it's easier to just go and work for someone else and get paid every week without even worrying, and just go through that process. Why did you do it? So if you share your why in your content, that will draw out your ideal client. And, that's a much easier opportunity to convert into a sale than just trying to be everything to everybody.
Yeah, very good point. If you could, I'm going to share the link. I'll get this from you, the link for the book that you
Sure.
co-authored. But if you could also share with us the 2 LinkedIn profiles where we can connect with you on your personal page and then also your company page.
Absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn under Michelle J. Raymond. So I use the J because there's millions of Michelle Raymonds on LinkedIn, some of which are really cool. I've connected with them. But yeah, so Michelle J. Raymond, and also Good Trading Co. is my company name for my business page. So if you reach out and follow me on both of those, that would be awesome.
That'd be awesome. And I'll include those links in the show notes as well. And then when you send her a message or you follow her, let her know that you found her through Connect the Dots.
Please, I love to connect those dots because you never know where that story is going to be. So I was on Vicki's podcast, and then that led to someone listening in, which led to something. I don't know. It will
We don't
end
know
up
yet.
somewhere.
Who
It will
knows?
happen.
Yeah,
We know it will
exactly.
happen.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for joining me today. I've absolutely loved this conversation. You are so insightful and so inspiring in your stories and just what you're doing and how you're helping people and what keeps you going every single day. So thank you so much for sharing so much with us today. I appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. And I'm sorry if I talk too much. I get a bit excited about these things. So
No,
it's been
talk
an
all you
absolute
want.
pleasure. And I can't wait till we connect the dots. So we now know it went from Jillian was on your podcast. I saw that. I chime in. I end up on your podcast. So let's see where the next dot goes.
Exactly. We want people to follow us so they can follow that trail as well.
Absolutely. You just never
Awesome.
know who that next connection is.
I know. You never know. Thanks so much, Michelle. I appreciate it. And thanks for everybody
No
who's listening and watching. And until next time, make today great.